Is it possible to misplace nearly 1 million jobs? Answer, yes. And that's bad news for the last year of the Biden economy. There may be some warnings for the Trump economy, too. Democrats care about the Epstein files because Donald Trump told them to. That's Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin's take as he scoffs at Trump's signature denials. From the Joe Rogan Experience to a U.S. Senate run, State Representative James Tallarico, all of 36, takes a leap of faith in Texas. Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Let me welcome you to the Takeout, and my thanks to Nancy Cordes, who helped out while I was on assignment in Florida yesterday. I've told you many times, when there's no overarching theme to the day's news, or for us, a leading takeaway, we will let you know. Today's one of those days. So we're going to do a lot of things today. We will dissect the latest jobs news and a Republican economist's declaration that American job creation is right now, in his words, dead in the water. We'll have more on the Epstein files, the birthday book, a Trump declaration that all of this is a dead issue, and yet the continuing political pressure to tell the public more. Also, Israel conducted an airstrike in Doha, Qatar today, an audacious military move, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, was designed to kill senior Hamas leaders there. Well, they were there at the invitation of the U.S. and Qatari governments as negotiations continue to win release of Israeli hostages living and dead in Hamas custody. Qatar is a sovereign country, home to the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East and a U.S. ally. Choosing its words carefully, the White House said it had not much noticed the attack was coming and that President Trump, quote, feels very badly, unquote, about it. The White House said the airstrike, which failed to kill the Hamas targets, by the way, quote, does not advance Israel or America's goals, unquote. And from Texas, fresh off Republican redrawing of its congressional district lines, comes State Representative James Tallarico, a minor podcast and social media sensation whose politics is laced with references to Jesus and biblical calls for justice. Today announced he's running for the United States Senate. Tallarico joins us to explain the risks and the why. The FDA Commissioner Marty McCary will be on to answer questions about the Trump administration's Make America Healthy Again report for children. But we start with what could be a Disney movie title, but probably isn't. Honey, I Shrunk the Jobs Numbers. For help, we turn, as we so often do, to Kelly O'Grady in New York. Kelly, take it away.
I like that. Okay, Honey, I Shrunk the Jobs Numbers. Maybe I'll get to star in a movie just yet, Major. Listen, this was a massive revision. It was the biggest that we have seen on record. And just for context, this is something that happens every year from April to March. This is, in this case, April 2024 to March of 2025. You sort of see this big revision, and this happens every year. But this was a particularly big number, 911,000 jobs. And what this tells you, Major, is that this weakness that we have been talking about in the labor market over the past 4 months with the jobs report has actually been brewing for quite some time, going back to roughly the last 10 months of the Biden administration. And so when I think about the so what here, one, this puts a lot of pressure on the Fed. And you even heard the president, the White House, call the Fed out, saying that Powell was too late. Next week, we have an interest rate decision, and there's going to be a lot of questions on, hey, this has been brewing for a while. Why haven't we gotten an interest rate cut? So it gives them more motivation to cut. The other thing that I will highlight, though, is this is a backward-looking report. So yes, we added close to 1 million less jobs than we originally thought in the U.S. economy, but we're not in a recession. We have lived through this data that is causing such concern today, and that's exactly why you didn't see the market go haywire, because this was already baked in.
And Kelly, we count a lot of things in our country. We're sort of mad about it. We're obsessed about the statistics of everything. Yet the methodologies for the Bureau of Labor Statistics are a bit antiquated. That's a point that observers on the outside made long before President Trump baselessly alleged that recent numbers were somehow rigged against him politically. But what accounts for a revision like this in the way we actually try to survey businesses and try to find out what the economy is actually doing month to month?
Well, you're exactly right. Even before the president came out and criticized those numbers, the methodology by economists at large has said, hey, we shouldn't be calling businesses up, asking them to fax their job numbers, their hiring. This should be done in a much more digital way. That being said, this is the data that the Fed has to go on. And so I think just going forward, it adds a little bit of caveat to, hey, yeah, these numbers are this, but they might be revised in the future. And it does put a lot of pressure on this next BLS commissioner to improve this data gathering quickly, if you will.
Ready for her Disney movie debut, Kelly O'Grady. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much. I further discussed the job revisions that we just talked about with Kelly with Douglas Holt-Eakin. He currently serves as the president of the conservative advocacy group, American Action Forum. Prior to this, he was the director of domestic policy and economic policy for John McCain's presidential campaign. He's also director of the Congressional Budget Office and chief economist for President George W. Bush's Council of Economic Advisors. Here's our conversation. Jobs revisions, it's an annual process.
Yep.
Number seems kind of big, though, 911,000. 0.6% of the entire U.S. labor market. The historical standard is 0.2%. Mm-hmm. How much of a deal is this, and what does it tell us that we didn't already know?
So it is a big deal because, 0.6 miss is a big miss for the BLS and should be something you pay attention to. So what's going on? Well, the U.S. economy is getting bigger. There are more workers, there are more firms every year. And the BLS has a flat budget and a flat staff, shrinking staff right now, and the same sample every month. So we're getting a smaller and smaller snapshot of the actual economy. On top of that, now we're getting this very low quote response rate. The firms don't answer the survey or they can do it late. So smaller snapshot. So we're getting a less complete picture in the monthly data. And then when they go to do the revision, they've got a really big picture and they compare them and we're off by more. That's what's going on.
Does that mean the Biden economy in its last year was worse than it looked?
Certainly that, half the jobs being created that they thought.
Didn't exist, weren't there, yeah.
They just weren't there. And then one of the things that's interesting about it is that the unemployment rate is what it is. We had low unemployment, so we were miscounting the jobs, but we were also miscounting the job openings. I mean, things were filled up more than people thought.
Mm-hmm. What is your definition, or description rather, of what the Trump economy is today?
Dead in the water.
By that you mean?
If you look out there in the labor market, no one's getting hired. We don't have mass layoffs. No one's getting fired. It's just stalled.
Things are frozen.
Stalled. Absolutely. There's some bad parts. Like, manufacturing is in open decline. We're down almost 40,000 jobs this year. The private sector in the past 4 months outside of healthcare has not really shown any job growth. So that's a very flat labor market.
And it's been described in many articles that I've read, Doug, that this is a very discouraging job market for recent college graduates.
Absolutely true. No one's getting fired, but no one's getting hired, and they're coming out.
Even with good degrees.
Yeah, no, but they're the newest kid on the block. They've got the least experience, and they just can't find an opening.
Does artificial intelligence play a role in that?
Not yet. It will. I think there's no question we can see it coming. But I'd say right now, AI, and in particular the massive investments in it, people are spending money on servers and software and all of that. That's been the one bright spot in the economy.
Is that artificially propping up some of the stock valuation, stock prices, and overall economic activity?
It is propping up the stock prices, no question about it. I mean, the unique thing about, say, the S&P, you hear so much about it, it's basically all tech companies, and they've been the least affected by the president's tariffs. So if you look at GM's in a world of hurt. GM's a tiny part of the stock market these days. Right. So he has hit the places that don't show up in the stock market. That's a little misleading. The economy as a whole has been hit pretty hard. You just don't see it in the market.
What is the proper way to describe the United States government taking an ownership stake of either U.S. Steel or Intel? Is that industrial policy? Is that some variation, some Trumpist kind of populist economics? What is that?
Unwise. Right, mark that down as unwise, because this is a polite company. This is something the United States has avoided, and not because there was a secret meeting and the economists that said these are the rules. It's because it works. When you get the government involved, you put your thumb on the scale in the competition. So Intel has access to taxpayer dollars that other people don't have. Allows them to do things other competitors don't do. Also comes with some baggage. There's no way we're going to let Intel go under now, right? So even if they perform poorly, we pour more money in. We have...
Same thing for U.S. Steel?
Same, yeah. I mean, the United States has complained for years about Chinese government involvement in their firms. Unfair, can't have them in international competition, not right. So what happens now when Intel tries to sign a contract in some other country? It's now a state-owned enterprise. They're being like, no, you can't, you don't get this stuff.
Administration says we have to do it for national security.
They didn't really say why they did it with Intel.
They said there were national security considerations.
Yeah, but they waved that flag around a lot. You know, that to me is a little frustrating, and I'll give you the very specific example why. We passed a law that said you must get rid of TikTok. We must not have it anymore because it is a national security threat.
Right. That's a law.
That went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided the national security considerations were great enough that we could override the free speech, which was real. They said this is a real infringement on free speech, but it's worth it. TikTok is now
still here.
Was it not a threat?
Right.
So I don't know what to make of their view of national security.
It feels arbitrary to me.
It's convenient.
When the Treasury Secretary said last week, Scott Bessent, that there will be higher GDP growth and nearly $1 trillion in tariff revenue, you said to yourself, what?
Gibberish. Makes no sense. I mean, these are positions the president has taken. We're going to have better growth. This will be the golden age. We're going to raise all this revenue, but they're not connected to reality. This is a $400 billion increase in taxes in the United States this year. That's not going to lead to 3% faster GDP growth. There is no mechanical way for that to happen. So you want the revenue, you pay the price in economic growth. You want economic growth, have policies that support it. You can't have it both ways.
Douglas Holtz-Eakin, I appreciate the time very much.
Thanks.
The White House is denying that President Trump signed that alleged birthday message to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in 2003. Democratic lawmakers released the letter, which features a drawing of a woman's body. Scott MacFarlane joins me now. Scott, catch us up on where all this is.
The White House repeated its denials that the president was the sketcher of the sketch, the drawer of the drawing, the writer of the note, and the signer of the signature we saw from that image released yesterday by Democrats on the House Oversight Committee.
Even though that signature bears resemblance to signatures of that era from Donald Trump.
We've seen a lot of that. Pushback from those who have gone through the signatures over the last 20 years, trying to mix and match what they see in that image with what they've seen in other images. But the White House press secretary took that on head on today, saying it's the most famous signature or one of the most famous signatures in the world. Also, the press secretary was asked about how would this have originated if it's not an authentic note and an authentic signature? This would have had to have been planted many years ago by somebody knowing this may be useful in the future. I think the...
Projecting far in advance that Donald Trump, then a real estate mogul in New York, and someone of his own renown would someday become president and this would become a political issue. How could that happen?
I think most fundamentally, though, Major, having this dialogue, having this back and forth is not the phrase, not the topic the Trump administration wants to be on. This is not the political terrain they want to walk upon.
Hence the president saying today it's a dead issue. But it's only a dead issue if everyone agrees it's a dead issue. And even some Republicans in the House and a couple in the Senate think it's not a dead issue.
I was waiting to see, and checking with our sources in the Democratic caucus on the House side, if they were going to try to roll out more of what they thought was illuminating in that document dump Monday night to keep this moving forward. And they didn't take that opportunity to spotlight anything and try to get a second bite at that apple politically. But it doesn't mean that there isn't more to be done for Democrats or for those who want more transparency on the Epstein files based on what they saw from the Epstein estate Monday.
Scott MacFarlane, always a pleasure. Thank you very much, sir. Still to come, Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, his reaction to Epstein's birthday letter and his relationship with President Trump, that is to say, Epstein's. I speak with the Maryland lawmaker next. Plus, he's been called a rising star in the Democratic Party. Texas State Representative James Tallarico announces a run for the U.S. Senate. I'll ask him why he thinks he can succeed where so many others before on the Democratic side have failed. And two well-known publications delete articles likely written by artificial intelligence. Does everything you read really have a person behind it? Well, here's one answer. The 100% human-powered Takeout returns. in 90 seconds. Welcome back to the Takeout. House Republicans are creating a new panel to reinvestigate the January 6th Capitol riot, a decision that House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says the GOP will come to regret, calling it an attempt to, quote, whitewash, unquote, the events of that day. Joining me now, Maryland Democrat, ranking Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, Jamie Raskin of Maryland. Congressman, always good to see you. I'll get to some domestic things in a moment, but two things are foremost on my mind. Israel sent an airstrike into Qatar today, targeting Hamas. The White House calls it unfortunate and says it does not advance Israel or U.S. interest. Do you have anything stronger to say about that?
Well, unfortunately, I've just learned of this like a few moments ago. I was on the floor, so I don't know all the details of it. But if they're being criticized by Donald Trump, you can be sure that it is a pretty destabilizing thing in terms of the effort to move peace and to have a comprehensive ceasefire in the war in Gaza. So I'll have to investigate it some more, Major, and happy to talk to you more about it later.
How about what's going on off the coast of Venezuela? Rand Paul in the United States Senate has said lots more answers need to come from this administration about its military posture and shooting down small boats in international waters, alleging that they are carrying drugs and narcotics to harm Americans. Do you agree?
So look, I mean, either it was an act of war, and if it's an act of war, it was never declared by Congress, and only Congress has the power to declare war. Or it was law enforcement. But if it's law enforcement, people have a right to be arrested and to have due process and to have a trial before they're executed. So I would say that that was an action that was lawless and contrary to our Constitution, because it did not follow a declaration of war by Congress, and it did not conform to any of the requirements that we have for criminal prosecution.
Does the administration owe Congress and the American public more information?
Well, absolutely. You know, the administration thinks that it can just circumvent Congress because our Republican colleagues allow them to do it on a daily basis. But Congress has the power to declare war. Congress has the power to pass budgets. Congress has the power to impose taxes and tariffs, not the President of the United States, which is why he's been struck down both by the international, the Court of International Trade, but also the appeals court in the Federal Circuit over the Court of International Trade. He has just unilaterally asserted the right to impose tariffs on people all over the world without an act of Congress. We have the power to regulate commerce domestically and internationally, and so the president is usurping the powers of Congress.
All right, on Epstein, what is your reaction to the White House denial that that is Donald Trump's signature in the Epstein birthday book?
Oh, I didn't realize they denied that. Well, that's comical. I mean, we know that he was Epstein's best friend for more than a decade. We have all kinds of photographs of them together, all kinds of video of them together. And I don't think anybody takes seriously the idea that he wasn't the one who wrote that extremely disturbing and creepy letter for his birthday with the creepy cartoon drawing of a prepubescent girl. I don't know what to make of that, other than to say the whole country is demanding release of the Epstein files. We don't want the dribs and drabs that the Trump administration wants us to see. We want the entire Epstein file that they don't want us to see.
The president and the vice president say with some vigor, Congressman, that you and other Democrats never said anything about the Epstein files during the Biden presidency and that you actually don't care about this. This is just political one-upsmanship.
Well, unlike Donald Trump, I don't know Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. I had nothing to do with them. We are relying on Donald Trump's word. He was the one who said that this is a sinister criminal sex ring. It's the Republicans who are the ones following Donald Trump who said it should be released. We are agreeing with them. It's only after 1,000 FBI agents worked around the clock to go through all of the files and to redact Donald Trump's name and go through all the videos and photographs that Donald Trump decided, no, there's nothing to see here. I want this all to go away. But the whole country was unified in saying we wanted the Epstein files. So that's a pathetically irrelevant distraction from this point when he says, this is a Democrat hoax. If it's a Democrat hoax, it's one that Donald Trump started.
There is a new committee to investigate January 6th, convened by Republicans. You will be an ex officio member of that. What is your agenda?
Our agenda would simply be to restate the absolute truth of what's in the report of the Select Committee on January 6th. They have not laid a glove on a single fact that we found. That was a real bipartisan committee that spoke to more than 1,000 different witnesses, that looked at millions of pages of documents and produced a report that nobody has touched in any way. They keep talking about Antifa or FBI agents and so on. If they think they've got something, bring it forward. But this is the second time they've tried to relitigate the report. In the last Congress, Mr. Loudermilk had an investigation into the investigation on the House Administration Committee. It was a complete dud. They weren't able to show anything. So the Democrats are not going to let them get away with any lies or right-wing conspiracy theories here. We're going to tell the truth about what happened again, and we will use it as an opportunity to educate new generations of young Americans about the dangers of authoritarianism.
Jamie Raskin, Maryland Democrat, ranking Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. Thanks for your time, sir. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Israel carries out a military strike against senior Hamas leaders in Qatar. What the U.S., if anything, knew about it in advance and what it might portend diplomatically or militarily. That's next, right here on The Takeout. Welcome back. Here is a look at what else we, and now you, are watching this evening. 15 fake electors in Michigan will not face a criminal trial over their involvement in efforts to overturn former President Biden's 2020 election win over Donald Trump there. A district court judge says the state failed to prove that those involved were knowingly trying to break the law by acting knowingly fraudulently. Investigators had accused the group of signing a document falsely stating that they were the state's, quote, duly elected and qualified electors, unquote. President Biden won Michigan by nearly 155,000 votes. We are learning a bit more about how much the U.S. knew about Israel's airstrikes on some senior Hamas leaders in the Qatari capital of Doha. According to the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, Pentagon officials informed President Trump as the attack was unfolding and that the U.S. did not coordinate with Israel. The Qatari Foreign Ministry called it a, quote, cowardly Israeli strike and said it violated international law. Many other countries in the region said the same, meaning it violated, to their point of view, international law. A senior Hamas official says their negotiators were targeted but survived. Charlie Daggett joins me now with more from the Pentagon. Charlie, this is a hard one. There are a lot of blanks. Can you fill in as many as you are able?
Well, I think we also, first of all, look at what's happening with the talks. The Israelis may be paying a pretty high price for this strike. As you said, among those targeted were Hamas leaders who are critical to negotiations. It's self-evident that that part is over. Hamas says those senior leaders all survived. But it puts the remaining hostages at risk. Grave risk, really, and it risks Israel's relationship to the United States by striking a major non-NATO member, and that's an important designation. It's also the country that hosts the largest U.S. military base in the region. And, of course, the Qataris themselves have been the main mediators, and they're furious, as you said, that for what the Israelis, an attack on their sovereign soil. The Qatari prime minister said, yes, they were warned of the attack, but that was 10 minutes after it started.
And, Charlie, in this world, this idea of knowledge, warnings, not necessarily asking for permission or pre-clearance, but there is a kind of process that most nations respect, especially allied nations. This feels like Israel kept it under tight wraps and just did it on its own.
Yes, yes. And I have some news to report there, okay? Because we do have, as you point out, there's a significant military presence in that region. About 4,000 troops kind of comes and goes at Al Udeid. We've been drilling down on that very question this afternoon after the White House, we were watching, the White House indicated that the military informed them of the strike. So officials I spoke with say the Israeli Defense Forces did inform the U.S. military through military channels, okay? So that suggests local. The notification was described as vague. They didn't have any specifics. They didn't know about the attack or the location of the attack until they saw it. And by that, they mean, you know, with the significant military presence there, they saw it coming in and where it was headed. The largest base, Al Udeid, which you remember came under attack from Iran a few months ago. So we were trying to figure out what the TikTok was. President Trump said he then told his envoy, Steve Witkoff, to warn the Qataris. But the Qatari prime minister said that attack was already 10 minutes underway. So if you start to piece together that TikTok, you understand how that information was passed to the White House and then back to the Qataris.
As always, with excellent reporting and analysis, Charlie D'Agata, Pentagon, thanks so very much. James Tallarico, he's been described as a viral and fast-rising Democratic state representative in Texas, and he enters a crowded field for the United States Senate. Will he be a star, or will he flame out? That's a kind of a big question that hangs over all this. We'll meet him next right here on The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Thanks for hanging out with us. The last time a Democrat won a United States Senate election in Texas was 1988, and the winner was Lloyd Benson. He did not become vice president because he was Michael Dukakis' running mate then, but he became senator again. It feels like every political cycle since then, people talk about Democrats winning a U.S. Senate race there. But it doesn't seem to happen. Candidates with national profiles have come and gone. Colin Allred, Beto O'Rourke came close, but did not prevail, even when it appeared Democrats in Texas had some kind of momentum. Along comes Presbyterian seminarian and Democratic State Representative James Tallarico. He thinks he has what it takes, and today jumped into the race against Republican Senator John Cornyn. Representative Tallarico, I'm glad to have you on the program. Forgive me, you will regard me probably as a jaded Washington journalist who has grown tired of the old saw from Democrats in Texas. Okay, Major, this is the year we're all going to turn it around. This is the year we're going to win statewide. And I don't see it. So tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, it's a little bit of a leap of faith. I firmly believe that all 30 million Texans deserve a senator who's going to represent their interests in the halls of our nation's capital, not the interests of their billionaire mega donors. I've been fighting this corrupt, broken political system at the state level at our state capitol for 4 terms, and I'm now ready to take that fight against corruption to our nation's capital, where I think it is needed now more than ever.
Well, when a majority of Texans vote for the government they have in Texas, what makes it broken and corrupt?
I think all voters, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, would agree that this political system is corrupt. And the reason I say that is because when a party gets in power and passes a big, beautiful bill that kicks millions of Texans off their health care, takes food out of the mouths of hungry Texas kids, all to fund tax breaks for billionaires who contribute to the campaigns of the politicians, that to me is the highest form of corruption. We often think of corruption as something that's illegal or something that just involves money or bribes. That certainly is true. It's certainly true in the case of Ken Paxton, who's also running for this seat. But corruption is really just the betrayal of the public's trust. It's the abuse of a public office. And that's what I think is happening at every level of our government. And I don't mean to cast aspersions on any one person. It really is a system that allows for too much big money influence. It's a system that allows politicians to pick their voters through things like gerrymandering. These are systemic problems that we have to address if we hope to make progress on all the issues we care about.
Representative Tallarico, will you bar any billionaire from donating to your campaign directly or indirectly? And will you cap, that is to say, set a limit on the dollar amount you'll accept? Directly or indirectly?
Thankfully, now that I'm running for a federal office, there are campaign
There are, yes, I know, but there are lots of different ways to get around that. You know that.
Yes, and you know, in Texas, in state races, which is what I've done before, there are no campaign contribution limits. In fact, I, as a state lawmaker, put forward a bill that would have put in place limits on those contributions like there are at the federal level. So this is already an improvement over what we have at the state level in Texas. But like you said, there are way too many ways around it. I have put in place a ban on corporate PAC donations to my campaign for U.S. Senate. It's a policy I had in my office as a state lawmaker. I'm the only member of the Texas legislature who hasn't taken a dime of corporate PAC money. In fact, I had to send back checks that I received from Walmart and Chevron and AT&T because I have this self-imposed ban. So I'm going to continue that in this U.S. Senate race. Not that I believe I should unilaterally disarm. I don't believe in that. But I do think there are ways that we can all take some steps to limit the influence of big money in our own campaigns.
If you are elected, you would hope to be a member, and you've said this, of a Democratic majority in the United States Senate. If that were true, who should be the majority leader?
I don't know. You know, I as a state lawmaker, whenever someone wanted to run for a leadership position, I sat down with them and asked them a lot of hard questions about how they wanted to use that leadership position. I asked them about their vision and their values and their strategy. I obviously haven't sat down with anybody who's in a leadership position in the U.S. Senate or wants to be in the future. But if I'm fortunate enough to be elected to this position, I will have that same approach. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to listen, I'm going to ask questions, and then I'll make a decision based on those conversations.
Chuck Schumer would not, in your mind, be the heir apparent.
No, I would hope that whoever's running has a fair and open hearing. They'll certainly get that from me. I'm not going to give deference to someone just because they have the position. If that were true, I wouldn't be running against John Cornyn.
What's wrong with Colin Allred?
Well, I don't think I should start a political campaign by saying something nice about my opponent, but I respect Colin Allred greatly. I campaigned vigorously for him in the last election and was disappointed that he didn't prevail in that race. I'm not running against Colin Allred. If he's the nominee, he will make a fine U.S. senator and infinitely better than Ken Paxton or John Cornyn. But I do think that I bring a particular set of experiences and skills. I bring a certain set of values, and I think I bring a vision for not only my party, but more importantly, the state and the country that meets the moment that we're in right now. And so I want the opportunity to make that case to the people of Texas over the next few months. And I hope this primary is beneficial both for me and Congressman Allred.
You described this candidacy, Representative Tallarico, as a leap of faith. Is part of that faith that at the end of their primary, Republicans will be divided and demoralized with the outcome?
Well, I certainly would be demoralized if my nominee was Ken Paxton or John Cornyn, because, again, both men embody this corrupt political system. But I look forward to prosecuting the case against either of them, regardless of who makes it out of that primary. And again, you know, I hope that this campaign can be about bigger things than just individual people. I hope it can be about how the system incentivizes the kind of corruption we've seen from Ken Paxton and John Cornyn, because ultimately we're all trapped in this failed system, and it's going to take all of us coming together to transform it.
State Representative Democrat James Tallarico, I appreciate the time, sir. Good luck on the campaign trail.
Thanks for having me.
The Commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration, Dr. Marty Makary, was supposed to appear on the show. That's why we mentioned him in the show open, but he had to cancel. This sometimes happens because he's in a meeting with the president. We will try to reschedule that. Up next, some top news sites are forced to delete dozens of articles, the apparently artificial intelligence writings posted under fake names that were passed off as written by real people. It's an interesting and complicated story. We'll tell you more about it next, right here on The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Welcome to the Conversation Corner. So here's something to think about, something that we certainly think about. Are prominent news organizations prepared to combat the rise of artificial intelligence in a specific context? Listen, an investigation from the Washington Post reveals Several well-known publications, including Business Insider and Wired, have removed articles that appear to be AI and published under fake aliases. Media reporter for the Washington Post, Scott Nover, joins me now. Scott, it's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me what you found and what this might represent as something that is a problem for prominent newsrooms and their consumers.
Sure. So about a month ago, a report surfaced online from a British publication named Press Gazette, finding that there was a fake byline that had surfaced in a number of different publications, or it was likely fake, and peddling some interesting stories that may or may not be real. The name was Margot Blanchard, which kind of even sounds fake. And so my piece really dug into what happened next. Business Insider was one of the major publications that was hit by this, and over the course of the next few weeks, did its own internal investigation and found 40 total articles written not only by Miss Blanchard, but other bylines that were also fishy, and issued retractions, which are extremely rare in journalism. And so not only did Wired and a couple other publications, retract one or two, but Business Insider retracted 40.
We've had reporters from Wired on this program numerous times. It is a fulsome, important voice in covering high technology and all the spaces around it, economic, political, and cultural. It is the last place I would have expected where this might have happened.
Right, it's a Condé Nast publication. Think New Yorker, Vanity Fair. It's kind of the gold standard of tech reporting. And so they wrote a mea culpa saying that they got rolled, was their word, by an AI scammer. And they only caught wind of it because the scammer asked to be paid via PayPal and not actually give their bank details. So they were fooled the entire way to publication and after, until the payment process happened. And they thought, well, that's fishy. Why are they giving me a PayPal?
Scott, I'm a very old person, so I grew up in a lot of different newsrooms where everyone worked under the same roof. But there is a dynamic in journalism now of freelance journalists who are not in a newsroom. They are remote, they're in a different city, and that's part of this difficulty that news organizations have to refine and constantly sift the authenticity of what comes across the transom.
Right. I personally, before my current job, was a freelancer for a number of years and lived in different cities across the country. And standard practice would usually be a phone call, some sort of email chain, if not an in-person meeting with a publication. But in the age of internet publishing, the economics of the media business aren't always great, and it can encourage sloppiness, fast publishing, shortcuts, and beget this kind of scammery.
Does the Washington Post take specific steps?
Yeah, we have a whole
especially after this article came out.
Exactly. No, well, we have like a whole freelancer network that you have to create an account, input your information, kind of get checked out. So luckily, the Washington Post was left off of this list.
Very good. Scott Nover, I appreciate the time. Thanks very much. Coming up, my conversation with David Rubenstein, the owner of the Baltimore Orioles, on the economy and much, much more. That's next, right here on The Takeout. Welcome back. As we discussed earlier, the Bureau of Labor Statistics revised job growth down by nearly 1 million in the 12 months leading up to March of this year. Yet, David Rubenstein, co-founder of the Carlyle Group and owner of the Baltimore Orioles, has a pretty positive outlook for the future of the U.S. economy. It is more positive than his outlook for the Orioles, who are currently ranked last in the American League East. I didn't really allude to that during our conversation, the Orioles, I mean. But here, take a listen. How would you assess where the economy is right now?
The economy? The economy is something where it's a $30 trillion economy, $30 trillion annual economy. So it's hard to say where a $30 trillion economy is going to go. Things move it relatively slowly. But I'd say right now, I don't see a recession imminently in front of us. We haven't had a recession for a while. Normally you have recessions every 7 years. And we really haven't had one. We had a technical recession during COVID, but not a real recession. So I think the economy is always due for a recession when you're going this long without one, but I don't see one on the horizon. Right now, while the jobs numbers are softer than everybody would like, I think inflation is not as bad as it was a couple years ago. It's coming down, still could be a little bit better. But generally, I think the American technology world is so strong. We dominate the world in technology, and that's fueling the economy and fueling the global economy too. And as artificial intelligence becomes more and more powerful, I think it's going to really help fuel American growth even more.
There's push and pull on that, though, with technology and particularly artificial intelligence. I've read analysis of companies that are projecting much higher growth and profitability, but almost zero increase in personnel because of productivity gains they are going to assume from AI. So that makes them wealthier, but it doesn't create more jobs. There's a push and pull there.
When the Industrial Revolution came along in the late 1800s, people said jobs are going to be taken away and people are going to lose their jobs. And yes, there was transition. But anytime something comes along that's new, some people are displaced, unfortunately, and some people get new jobs. And so people may get different jobs. Right now, we have a relatively low unemployment rate, relatively low, a little bit more than 4%, which is not that bad relative to the economy of our size. And we now have more people, more job openings than we have people to fill these jobs. So I think the economy is going to go through a transition. AI will ultimately do what people probably think it will do, which is to change the job mix a bit. But ultimately, you're going to have people trained for AI kind of jobs. And ultimately, over a period of time, I suspect it'll be good for the economy.
So when the naysayers say this is a fundamental shift, it's not like the Industrial Revolution, it's not like any other technology before, because it's all encompassing and because it takes so many human tasks out, you say it's going to be all right?
Well, as one person once said, I think it was Lord Templeton, the most dangerous words in the English language are, this time is different. And so to say this time is different is really dangerous because I don't think it's that different than other things we've had that have changed the economy. Remember, when the internet came along, people said, uh-oh, people are going to lose their jobs now. We won't have the needs for certain things that we had before. The internet has fueled a lot of jobs. Remember, we didn't have, let's take Uber. Uber is possible because of the internet, and that's created a lot of jobs. And so I think it's too difficult for humans to say what's going to happen 5 years, 10 years down the road in the economy as a general rule of thumb. Given where we are today, I'd much rather have our AI position than the AI positions of other countries. Other countries, I think, are really envious of what we've done in AI so far, and we're really at the beginning of the first inning, really, I would say, in AI. We just don't really know yet how it's going to work, but I'd be happy to have the valuations of some of the AI companies in my portfolio because they have done quite well, and I think they're going to continue to do well.
Word association, tariffs.
Tariffs are something that's been around since the beginning of our country. Normally, you have tariffs when you're trying to protect your economy. In our case, our economy is in pretty good shape, but the dilemma we now have is that because the big, beautiful bill was structured in a certain way, it assumes there's going to be a lot of tariff revenue coming in over the next 10 years. I think the latest numbers from the Congressional Budget Office are somewhere between $3 and $4 trillion are going to come in over the next 10 years. So if you were to eliminate the tariffs, and we don't have this revenue, we're going to have much bigger budget deficits. So we've locked ourselves into a position we probably need the tariffs because the budget revenue is necessary. We have a big budget deficit problem, as you know, in this country, and we have now about $37 trillion of total indebtedness, and that's a big problem.
And the Supreme Court's going to have to decide about the legality of these tariffs because they are imposed under authorities that no previous president has claimed, under a 1970s emergency economic law. If the Supreme Court says, wait a minute, you've exceeded your authority, and Congress is the one, and the Constitution is very clear about this, if there are going to be tariffs, they need to go through Congress, Trump could suffer a defeat, and all this could be turned upside down.
Well, I think what happened was they used the 1977 emergency tariff legislation to justify it, but there is other legislation that could have been used and may well be used, and so they may use that other legislation, which does give the president more rights than that 77 legislation. The Supreme Court is a court that doesn't try to make bold decisions and say, we're going to solve all problems in the world when a case comes to us. They try to look at the narrow way that they can decide this case, and they might decide it on narrow grounds. I just don't know. It's going to take a while before it's resolved.
So happy Tuesday, everyone. Remember, we are the Takeout, imitated, never equal. Please stick around. The Daily Report starts right now.